It's a lovely day, full auditorium, which is great. I was told that I can count the beards and hairs on your face, so I can probably see every one of you, which is always good. As Misha says, my name is Rachelle Noel. I am a sales engineer at Jamf, and I know that I'm kind of standing in between you and food. We're running long from the first session, so don't worry. I talk quite quickly, so hopefully I can make up some time. But today, software updates think different. So I don't know if Ulrich planned it. He played right into my gatehouse where he had a update happen right on schedule, and we were in cahoots together. So thank you for that. I really appreciate that. Where are we going to start? So with most things, I think it's always good to kind of understand where we've come from to figure out where we are and where we're going, right? So when we're talking about software updates, we're going to take a little trip down memory lane. We're going to see how MDM has kind of changed and evolved, and how and why DDM is the future. We've kind of like heard a lot about DDM, so hopefully, over this session, there'll be some new bits, things that we're saying, oh, I remember the good old days, or taking some bits and pieces away to say, okay, right, I really get DDM now, and how can I push that forward, and what we can do with device management as a whole, not only software updates. Now, Ulrich also said about acronyms. Again, we're working together here. Sometimes it's good to kind of level set where we are. I will be going through a lot, hopefully, MDM at least, and DDM aren't new terminologies, software updates, software upgrades. BSI might be, background security improvements. If I say RSRs or rapid security responses, then we're all on the same page. We know where we're coming from. It's interchangeable in my head at the minute. It's not fully ingrained. So let's get in our little hot tub time machine and go down memory lane and venture into what what software updates look like in yesteryear. So over the years, we've seen technology evolve, probably faster than we can keep up. But with all the new advances that we have in technology, it's kind of like, how do we actually get the devices up to date to enable that? From the humble beginnings of the floppy disk, I remember it well, to CD-ROM and PowerPC for Mac. I actually saw one of those outside. To FTPs, Apple Configurator, MDM, doing remote commands, to now DDM. There's been a lot of change over the 50 plus years that we're going through right now. And, as admins, we're having to pivot quite a lot, trying to get ahead of the game, get our head around technology as and when it evolves and changes. Now, pre-MDM, the workflow kind of looked like having to physically touch that device. Maybe you had Apple Remote Desktop, maybe you're using like packages, DMGs to sort of do those updates on device, command line tool. So I know that people are still utilizing it. So sometimes, you don't have to change everything. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. And if you build something good enough, it does show the test of time over that duration of what we're trying to achieve. And, when we are looking at, the reasons behind it, I think everyone's kind of aware why we need to keep our devices up to date. I think back in the day, it's about getting the new features, be it being able to burn a native CD disk or utilizing USBs, or I was going through my office and doing a bit of a clear out, and I found a FireWire 400 cable. I tell you, I never found a FireWire 400 cable when I actually needed it, but alas, here we are. I found it, and I was told the other day that it's probably worth a lot of money, so I probably shouldn't have thrown it away. But we live and learn. But, looking at what kind of new features and enhancements was the main driver behind why we needed to update our devices. But because of that, I remember having to run around and physically touch every device, which wasn't the best. Kept me fit, got my steps up. But having to actually be quite reactive, labor intensive, and while imaging was great, is great, it's dead. And it's like, RIP, bless your heart. You know, we were kind of moving from that model where employees were fixed in a location with their devices. Okay, as that's now changed, it's like, how can we, you know, move with it? I remember I had to keep a spreadsheet together of all my devices, what version it was on, where we're at, what's installed, what components, where it was. But as I say, you know, kind of not having necessarily a source of truth was quite difficult to administrate. So with that, in 2014, it feels like a lot longer ago than it is, 2014, was the rise of MDM. So that kind of gave us the, you know, remote enforcement of software updates on devices where we can kind of keep our environments up to date. And, you know, previously, you know, we had to make sure that it was just features. But now, because of the more prevalence of devices, of Apple devices in enterprise, we've actually got a bigger target on our head now, right? And I really think like MDM as a whole has enabled more Apple devices being available in enterprise, which is great. We love it. But now we have to maybe think a little bit more about those security concerns, because those naughty people out there, malicious actors, are going, hey, I want to sort of, you know, take you down. I want to get things on there. So making sure that the devices are up to date is key to ensure that we're keeping a more robust and secure posture on device as well. So hopefully this isn't new, right? We're looking at utilizing APNS, so Apple Push Notification Services, establishing that connection between the server and the device. You know, there's a command that's being sent from the server to the device, be it deploying a configuration profile, an update command that's being sent, or a simple inventory update. Now, what we're actually doing is instructing the device to scan for available updates, querying to see if that list is available, deploying that core command, be it install now, ASAP, you know, force restart, those sorts of things. And we're polling for an update, constantly back and forth, say, hey, has something changed, has something changed? Now, when a device it kind of like acknowledges that command, be it install ASAP, essentially it's then going to send a single acknowledgement back to the server. Now, what if that update has failed? Right? Maybe you've got low battery, maybe a network connection. You know, it's quite hard to make sure that, you know, that we don't have failures out there in the wild. We don't have any native way to report back into the server. So, you know, when we're updating silently, it might silently actually fail, and therefore we're then not covered, right? Haven't got compliant devices out there that need to be on the latest version as intended. Now, I'll put my Jamf hat on. We do have smart groups within Jamf Pro where potentially you can monitor it and then, you know, reinitiate an update through those commands. But again, it's a manual process, and who's got time for that? No one, right? So that's kind of why we're looking at maybe tools like Nudge that kind of came into the fore that could help us with those sorts of terminologies. So hopefully everyone is aware of this. And, you know, when we're kind of looking at that poll and response model, it's reactive. It's quite chatty when we're looking at it at scale. And, you know, it's not that resilient. You know, we love classic MDM. We love everything it gave us the ability to do. But there's some inherent problems when it's quite delayed and dependent on the device being reachable at a specific moment. And for something as time sensitive as a security update, you know, every hour that it's not patched means that your devices are potentially vulnerable and at risk of those malicious actors getting into the system. So as I say, none of this is new information. It's been out since 2014. You know, you're all well aware of this process. Well, unfortunately, we got some deprecations coming our way. As of the next OS, and I'm probably going to go out on a limb and suggest it's going to be an OS 27. I don't know. Call me silly for just plucking that out of nowhere. You know, these workflows that we've just gone through are going to be deprecated. So sorry to be the bearer of bad news if this is new information for you. It kind of gets a little bit worse. There's other things that we're going to lose as well on some deprecations that are coming as of, you know, September, October time. But don't worry, Apple have got your back. They wouldn't leave you in the lurch. Don't worry about it. Because these limitations that we've kind of gone through, I believe are the reasons why is the why behind the DDM. Okay? The reason why Apple back in 2021 decided to make that bold move towards a declarative way of thinking. So how can devices actually, they're called smart devices for a reason, how can they be smarter and make it so IT admins don't have to work harder? That's the end game for us, right? It's like, if I can automate, please let me do so, right? If you can, then you should. So the core pillars when it comes to declarative device management, or DDM, because generally I have too many teeth in my mouth to try to say that all at once, are declarations and status channels. So let's start with declarations. So declarations have 4 key components or types. So we've got management, activations, configurations, and assets. Okay, so this kind of builds up that declaration status. Now, let's deal with management. So with management, it's a declaration that essentially creates that connection between the server and the device. Don't worry, it's kind of all, if you're kind of deploying that, obviously, with an MDM, it kind of handles that declaration from the get-go. Now, if we're looking at some the access rights here, so 8191, it's essentially saying, I have, as an MDM, the ability to control and deploy declarations to you. It's saying, well, we're good. We've done a bit of a handshake, and we're friends, right? So it utilizes a bit mask, which is inherited from classic MDM. So, again, we don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. But essentially, it's controlling that enrollment access rights model. Now, this is actually enforced on device when a device is eligible for DDM and compatible at enrollment. Okay, and we have the ability to reach out. So for us, the check-in URL is to reach out to your Jamf instance. Okay, so it knows who I'm supposed to be talking to. And in a software update context, the device won't honor any software update enforcement declarations from a server that hasn't declared this. So this is essential. But you don't need to worry about it. It's handled by your MDM. Okay. Now, activations. Now, I really like activations because essentially it gives you the ability to make declarations context aware. So it defines the configuration or when a configuration should be applied. Okay, so we can use predicates or conditions, and essentially when we're looking at software updates, I've got it that my predicate that it has to be a Mac, right? Pretty straightforward, pretty simple. But we can make that wider to maybe look at also the device has to have a specific group membership, maybe other status channels attributes as well. So you can really be quite granular about how you can deploy certain software updates, for example, or declarations as a whole. Okay. Now, configurations. This is the main one, right? This is the big honcho. Essentially, we can define what should happen. What do you actually want from me as a configuration? In this case, we're enforcing 26.4.1, and I actually put it so it's the 1st of May. See what I did there? Because I actually looked at the calendar and I was like, oh, sorry, shots fired. So it will be updated on the 1st of May from 6 o'clock local time. So if you do have a travelling feat, always bear that in mind when you are looking at setting these up as well. Okay, and it just means that you don't have to continuously do those MDM commands. It's being a more efficient way and efficient protocol. The device autonomously tracks the deadline, as we've seen out, right? It knows, hey, you told me that it was going to happen on the 30th. I'm going to go. So here we are. So bear that in mind when we are configuring that to ensure that the end user isn't compromised in a very public setting. And assets. So from a software update focus, assets aren't necessarily needed. Okay, everything that we have is kind of self-contained within a configuration. You can obviously add activations and those predicates to kind of extend that. But with assets, it's a core declaration type. And if you want to look at declarations and DDM on a wider scale, looking at that wider DDM framework, assets is something great to bear in mind. Essentially, it uses or it references supporting data. So you might have a cloud distribution point or a content network delivery system, or maybe in this instance that you have contact information, or maybe the certificate server as well, right? So it's where in lockstep with the configuration declaration, there's good pairing because it can reference that external or repeatable data going forward. So again, not necessary for software updates, but if you're looking to investigate DDM a little bit more, then just something to bear in mind that that's another tool in your tool belt. And status channels. So this is basically the proactive reporting mechanism introduced by Apple's DDM protocol. And so rather than, in this case, say Jamf Pro or your MDM, constantly asking for information, say, hey, it proactively reports back utilizing these status channels, which means it results in faster, more reliable information in the inventory. Now, a status channel is built up by these top-level domains, each containing nested status items. So for software updates, we kind of need to know what's the operating system, build version, potentially, right? And obviously, I mean, software update is pretty self-explanatory, right? This kind of gives you the process. So this will identify whether something's failed, if it's pending, if it's been installed, give you a reason why it has failed. And again, not reinventing the wheel. This is, system and user channels. So, Apple applies it to, for system, applies it to the device, regardless of who's logged in. For user, it's a specific user account. Right? So all of this comes together to build up quite a robust way of deploying a declaration to a device. So when we are looking at declarative device management, certain things stay the same. We still need our APNS. We're talking to the device. MDM creates that software update declaration. It's then sort of pushing out that management, activation if you configured it, and a configuration part of the declaration to the device. At this point, it will start downloading a pending update. And then obviously, once that timeline has hit, it will then start to install. Okay, so it executes at that scheduled time. Now, if the device is asleep, essentially, it will then stay in that pending state until the user wakes it up or logs back in. And then it will proactively report that back to your server to say, hey, we're all good. Now, this is all kind of part and parcel with like an authorization token that's issued during login. So when we had to wait for the end user to actually have to log in and utilize their volume password, to then initiate the installation, that should never be the case, right? We as admins, we need to be aware, or we should be guiding and controlling the compliance of a device. As an organization or institution, we need to say, we need to be on X version. We can't be reliant on the end user, maybe clicking away from it, right? So by giving us the ability to actually force it, as we've seen, on device, it really sort of ensures that the actual organization that we're working for can fully control that compliance policies, okay? Because that's what status channels can do. It really inverts this kind of conversation. Maybe if you're thinking about you have a manager who's a little bit of a micromanager, who likes to kind of talk to you all the time, say, hey, have you done this yet? Have you done this yet? Have you done that? Right? That's classic MDM, right? From, DDM, it'd be I trust my team. I know that they're going to come to me when the job's done, and they're just going to let me know that we're good to go and we can talk to the customer, right? DDM, right? A lot less friction, a lot more efficient use of everybody's time, and the system's more efficient. And there we go. I've got the build, always. DDM and background security improvements. So BSIs essentially are lightweight security releases covering Safari, WebKit. They are updated silently, sometimes without changing the version number on device. So how do we handle that? well, Apple, as if they were waiting for me. They were like, do you know what? I know Rachelle's got a software update session. I'm going to really help her out. And I'm actually going to release a BSI, which is great. So back in March, they released a BSI, which is great for our testing purposes. Because essentially what we have the ability to do is they're only available on specific point releases. So obviously that was for 26.3.1. And from a Jamf perspective, essentially we can handle this through Blueprints, which is our declarations delivery mechanism, essentially. I know blueprints is the word of the day and it means different things for different folks, but in us it's the way that we can kind of utilize declarations and deliver that to the device. And essentially we can build that out for you, right? When we are sort of updating the device, we can do the configurations and declarations through that UI, and it kind of handles that construction itself. However, like with everything that we kind of talked about through software updates and DDM, there's always going to be a use case, right? There's always going to be something specific that you need to maybe want to customize a declaration. Okay, so essentially what we have is potentially you might have the ability or you want to enforce a build on a device, right? Maybe there's other ones available, you want to enforce a specific one. Or maybe you want to pinpoint a pilot group to a specific build version. Maybe you've got like a CVE that fix that lands, and you want to make sure that it's on there. You want to say, hey, we need to stay compliant, we need to make sure that this is on there, so you need to kind of get that done. How we've currently got it in our UI, or how you would normally configure software updates, is we surface currently just the local time and date in OS version. So there's no build there. Okay, so, but we've got you covered. we have the ability to do custom declarations as well, where you can access the full DDM framework. It enables you to configure a whole host of things, not just software updates. I will put my engineering hat on and say, if we're utilizing custom declarations, make sure that we understand the DDM framework. And we're not just pushing out any declarations that we've just built to our production fleet. We're having a test pilot group. It's like I haven't been told I have to say these. Always use testing groups when we are building out these custom declarations. It is, you don't want to change something on device that you were like, oh, I didn't know that I was going to do that, right? So just bear that in mind when you are interrogating it a little bit more. But when we have this custom declaration, essentially, we have the ability now to add that build number, that build version. Okay, so we can use it very specifically to utilize for those use cases. Or maybe you need to automatically enroll your devices into the beta program. That's going to be probably quite handy coming up after WWDC, getting on the beta program, doing some testing so that you are ready for out on a limb OS 27 when that comes down the line. Okay, so you can utilize custom declarations to enable that on devices, right? So there's not only from a software update kind of context, but a wider context as well. And through our Jamf concepts page, we have our DDM Explorer, which will help you through this journey. Again, we know it's kind of relatively new, understanding what a payload looks like, what's available, what can we configure. So Apple have their GitHub, which we can kind of tie into the DDM Explorer. And we can basically help you build that out. We don't expect you to just automatically know this information, and being able to understand and copy and paste in some regard that into your custom declaration within your blueprints payload, blueprints to then deploy onto device is kind of where you should start. Okay. So we haven't left you in the lurch. And I had mentioned activations and predicates, and this is kind of just something that's coming soon, which I thought I would call out. Essentially, currently in the UI, we don't have the ability to actually customize predicates. You would have to use a custom declaration. Coming soon into Pro, we have the ability to actually bring that forward and give you the ability to add those predicates. So that really can give you the ability to be really granular about what you want to enforce and how and when things should be enforced as well. So don't laugh at my nice little drawing. It's been a journey, right? We've kind of come far from the good old days of floppy disk FTPs all the way to DDM, and I'm sure this is all just another stop on the journey, right? As technology evolves and moves forward, we need to keep up to speed with it, and moving from maybe having to be reliant on those check-ins, getting that real-time visibility back through those status channel updates. Likewise, with maybe not being able to understand what devices in your fleet have actually failed. So getting that real-time feedback through those status channels to say it has failed and the reasons why is, again, a game changer. Not having to manually update each and every device, but building out some automations to ensure that's done. Obviously we've got some schedule updates. We've also got a set and forget option as well. So if you have a cadence that's release plus 30, and that's what you're happy, your organization signed off on that, you can kind of set and forget that. OS 26 has also been a little bit of a game changer when it comes to automating updates. Rather than devices being on 15 or 18 and you having to build out policies separately, by just targeting OS 26, the device is smart enough to understand, I don't meet this criteria, so that I'm not going to enforce it. Or another one say, hey, I meet all this criteria, huzzah, I shall update accordingly, right? So it's a great tool to really kind of help you automate where you can. Now, DDM, as I say, is the future, and the future is now. As I say, there's deprecations that we've highlighted. There'll be certain declarations that will only be declarations and not configurations of old. So we need to really be upskilling, making sure that we're understanding what's coming down the pike, what can we configure. If you're building out new configurations, and it's available in DDM, start there, okay? Rather than having to go back and sort of merge or sort of do a little bit of a migration from your configuration profiles. So essentially, I will also give a little plug to our colleague Luke Allen from the consulting engineering team, who has a upgrade manager. So it's a great tool to keep, as an admin, kind of keep abreast of your devices and what's happening on there. Maybe you have people in your team who aren't necessarily MDM savvy, but you still want them to get them engaged and give them a task like this. And as I say, there is a beta program. So if you do want to kind of test it out, he's more than willing and happy to speak to each and every one of you. I don't know if he told me to say that or not. Well, anyway, slide into his DMs. I'm sure he'll be fine. And so give him some feedback. Hopefully, all of you are at least sort of dabbling in DDM and kind of have kind of seen it at least. And if not, you've kind of seen what the core foundation of DDM is, so you can kind of build that out and move it from not only software updates but beyond. I would suggest to start with software updates. It's the most robust declaration, in my opinion, and I feel like there's going to be a lot more that's coming down the line. I've overrun, but here we are. You can eat now. So thank you, everybody.